Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
Three minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Robin, one of the things we use, one of the tools we use when we're trying to promote something or other is we go to this like this mailing list company, and we never get the list. Actually, they actually put when we buy postcards or whatever, we're trying to promote something, they'll put the names on there, and it doesn't matter to me. I guess I just trust them, and then they do it. But apparently, if you're in politics, there are very, very stringent laws about having the names on a mailing list for like possible donors, etc. And I think, the way I understand it, Hillary Clinton's campaign got such a list. Very important. I guess these people are like you and I would have maybe 1,000 names on our list, or whatever. Right. I mean, ours is very small.
Yes.
4 million, and these would be people. You remember those big boats we saw over the weekend?
Yeah.
These are the kind of people who buy those big boats.
That's right.
So
that's right.
They're not people, counting their pennies to see if they have enough money to get to White Castle or something like that.
No.
On the phone is somebody who knows way more about this than we ever will, probably. Matthew G. Whitaker. He's a former U.S. attorney. And he's the director of the ethics watch group called the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, or FACT for short. He's talking to us about a complaint that was filed by them to the Federal Election Commission to investigate campaign finance violations by the Hillary Clinton campaign. This is going to be all questions on our part. I don't have a whole lot to say other than to ask questions. Matthew Whitaker, good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning. I'm glad I'm here.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
You know what? I'm in Washington, D.C. this morning.
So, as a watchdog group, do you play like favorites? Do you have partisan things or anything like that? I mean, are you picking on Hillary because she's a Democrat or because she violated some law?
No, we're a nonpartisan group here at FACT, and we've most recently been going after this Frank Gintup, a New Hampshire congressman who essentially did some shenanigans with taking a loan out that wasn't his own, but saying it was his own, and ended up paying a fine with the FEC, but he's never really been truthful with the people. So, and he's a Republican. So we're an equal opportunity, sort of watchdog, and we also, we is a target-rich environment. So, I mean, we oftentimes have more to do than we actually can do.
Wow.
So
wow.
It's but yeah, we do both sides of the aisle.
Do you know, in this job here, doing this radio show, I've often relied on watchdog groups, so-called watchdog groups, because you guys are so dead on with your observations. But the one thing I have to be careful of is that partisan thing. If a watchdog group is truly a watchdog group, they should be, as you just described, across the board, watching out for things. So,
yeah, no, and listen, if one side's doing it and the other side's doing it, we will and do complain about both. There's just the law is the law, and as a former prosecutor, I understand that we need to hold everybody to the standard, not just based on our own partisan predilections. And certainly, I am a registered Republican, and you don't have to do much research on the internet to see that I've been twice in campaigns for Republican nominations. So,
right,
with that being said, my group is nonpartisan, and we have gone after folks on both sides.
Is there a particular time frame that people are supposed to wait to begin raising funds for their presidential campaigns?
Well, there's a clear set of rules on presidential campaigns as to when someone is a candidate, based on either how much they've raised and spent, or whether they are in that testing the waters phase and then reach a point where they've done things that only a candidate can do, and they're no longer testing the waters. I mean, the FEC and the United States Code has some pretty explicit rules and regulations and laws that say when and if a candidate's a candidate. And our original complaint against Senator Clinton, former Secretary Clinton, was back in April, where we raised those very issues, that she had crossed the Rubicon of becoming a candidate instead of just considering it. And then we followed on recently with this list that we just are going to talk about today. Let me tell you, if you don't mind, I'll tell you a little bit about it.
Because at this point I'm still confused about that list. So, fill in the blanks.
Well, it's very simple. There was a super PAC called Ready for Hillary. And Ready for Hillary could raise unlimited money and spend unlimited money, and they used that money to primarily organize and act as a shadow campaign and sign people up as small dollar donors, as interested in Secretary Clinton. And so they collected 4 million unique names and email addresses and telephone numbers and all that kind of data. So there's 4 million people that are interested in Secretary Clinton. Now, who is the most interested in that list? Well, of course, it's now candidate Clinton.
Right.
And what happened is that list is in a super PAC, and it's not in the campaign, but the campaign wants it and wants to use it, and has now used that list.
Okay. So help me understand this, and forgive me for interrupting you, but if I don't ask now, I'll never remember these things. So, if the super PAC is in favor of Mrs. Clinton winning, wouldn't they want her to have this list?
Well, of course. And the question is how that list migrates from the super PAC to the campaign, because it cannot be given, because the super PAC cannot donate to the campaign, whether in kind or with cash or any other way. So the list has to either be sold at fair market value, or it's a in-kind contribution, an illegal, prohibited in-kind contribution.
Wow. So what is the value of the list? Do we know?
Oh, it's millions of dollars. There's no doubt.
Wow. And that's because the people on the list are wealthy, I'm guessing, for the most part, or enough of them are,
or they've already given to this super PAC. And I mean, just think about it. If on a 4 million person list, if they all gave just $25 from that list after they solicited, I mean, that's a big number.
That's a good point.
The law of big numbers applies here.
yeah, sure does. So so legally that's a violation, because but ultimately, if she wanted to use the list, it would be to contact those people to ask for more money.
Or to volunteer, or to do something of value for the campaign. Yes.
So wouldn't she go to the PAC? I mean, what would be the legal way of doing it? She could go to the PAC and say, "Can you write to these people and say this is what we're wanting?"
Well, no, because they can't coordinate. See, that's we're in this bright line between a super PAC and a campaign can't coordinate. So the only way to get that list to the campaign is to pay a lot of money. It's fair market value for that list. And, there is no information available currently as to how that list made its way to the campaign. We know that it was solicited because we've seen the email that went out from Mr. Mook, who is their campaign manager.
Okay.
And so we're asking the FEC to get behind, the transaction that happened to get that list to the campaign, because we believe that it was not transferred at fair market value.
Okay, so the super PAC, just before we take the break, just to kind of recap, the super PAC is in existence for the very purpose of raising money for Hillary Clinton. That's the purpose of their existence?
The purpose of their existence is to support, through independent expenditures, her anticipated candidacy.
Okay. We will take a little break and be right back. Phone calls are okay if you want to call in. I hope I'm saying the right thing, Matthew. Am I right? You okay with phone calls?
It's your show.
Okay. But you're the guest. I always want to ask the guest. But anyway, if you're listening and you want to ask a question, I'm a little bit confused by this, to be honest with you. Matthew G. Whitaker is our guest, and we are talking about the watchdog group that he's with, the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, or FACT for short, and the fact that FACT filed a complaint to the Federal Election Commission to investigate campaign finance violations by the Hillary Clinton campaign regarding a 4 million name email mailing list I got that right, I think. All right, we'll take our break right now and be right back. If you have any questions, the number is, or any comments, the number is 622-9622. I'll know how to do two things at once when I get older. We'll be right back.
Please call our office to schedule your appointment today. 866-314-4443. And from all of us here at Mike Scott Plumbing, thank you for your service.
Weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Sunshine mixed with some clouds today. Stray thunderstorm in the afternoon. High of 89 to 95. Turns out clear tonight. A low 71 to 74. Tomorrow and Wednesday, sunny to partly cloudy. Thunderstorm in the afternoons. High of 89 to 96 both days. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Maggie Johnson.
This is a public notice. Local residents can now save thousands of dollars on their next car, truck, or SUV. It's not a tent sale, because no tent is big enough to hold this many cars. It's OcalaForSale.com. Say goodbye to sticker shock. OcalaForSale.com has thousands of vehicles with no stickers at all. But hurry, don't walk, don't run. Just sit down and log on to OcalaForSale.com. Prices and inventory change daily. Offer does not include dealer upcharge, undercutting, loss proofing, factory surcharge, or delivery fee. See website for details.
For generation after generation, America's heroes have been fighting for our freedoms. And it's those freedoms that have allowed us here at Mike Scott Plumbing to prosper and grow in this great land of ours. At Mike Scott Plumbing, we help thousands of customers every day with everything from irrigation to repairing the kitchen sink. But if there's one thing that absolutely, positively needs to be maintained, it's your septic system. If you don't maintain your septic system, it could fail completely, leaving you with a big bill and an even bigger mess. So we here at Mike Scott Plumbing would like to help all of those who have helped us. If you have your septic pumped and you're a veteran, we would like to extend to you a special discount. Just mention this ad. Please call our office to schedule your appointment today. 866-314-4443. And from all of us here at Mike Scott Plumbing, thank you for your service.
Ouch. Does pain have you glued to the couch? Yes, unfortunately it's true that every year we must get older, but that doesn't mean we have to deal with pain in our back, knees, or shoulder. If your muscles and joints are sore, don't worry anymore. Come get acupuncture from me and you'll be pain-free. Acupuncture starts as low as $35 at a Better You Healthcare. Call me, Dr. Erica Olstein, at 615-5566. Stop your pain from driving you insane.
All right, 10 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. One of the things I've mentioned a few times in the course of this interview is that watchdog groups have always played an important role in the broadcast that we've done here, especially regarding politics. And we've had some local watchdog groups as well for the local expenditures and taxes, and et cetera. Matthew G. Whitaker is our guest. He's a former U.S. attorney and the director of the ethics watchdog group called the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, or FACT for short. And we're talking about a complaint filed to the Federal Election Commission to investigate the campaign finance violations by the Hillary Clinton campaign. So give us an update or the news on the complaint itself, Matthew. What is new with that? Is anything happening?
Well, our original complaint was right at the beginning of April. We filed the original FEC complaint, and then we supplemented it recently with a letter outlining this transaction that we heard about over the last couple of weeks, where this list actually made its way, to the campaign. We had forecasted and predicted that this list would make its way to the campaign in our original complaint, and now that it's happened, we felt like we should update the FEC in their open file that they have based on our original complaint in order to do their investigation of what happened and how this transaction quite possibly violated federal law.
And is there a way for her, if she says, you know what, whoops, I didn't know, I made a mistake? I mean, if she was to play innocent, would there be a remedy for her to be off the hook? Does she pay a fine? How does that work?
Well, as I'm sure you know, the campaign finance reports are filed quarterly. We're in the middle of the second quarter, which ends at on June 30. And so the only way to comply on this would be to make sure that transfer was for fair market value. And as we talked about in the first part of this interview. That list is certainly worth millions of dollars, and I guess I'll make a bold prediction that in their campaign finance disclosure, it's not going to have been obtained for what it was actually worth.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, that makes sense.
Will they ever mark down in-kind services for a list like this and not have any cash?
It's prohibited. That's the interesting thing is that a super PAC cannot donate to a candidate or campaign, and so in whether it's actually a cash donation or an in-kind donation. So that would be prohibited. They'd love to. I'm sure they'd love to give the list.
That's what
that's kind of the trick. Yeah, that's the trick bag they're in, is to getting that list to the campaign is difficult. I mean, it was they worked very hard to build this list of 4 million names, and now to get it to the campaign where it's of the most value is very difficult in order to comply with laws too.
I'm wondering if I'm alone in having a hard time truly understanding this, or are other people also? Do you have? Is it a hard job for you to get the average American to understand what you're talking about, so that we can make a call, write a letter, express our opinion?
Well,
my mom still doesn't understand what I do.
Moms never do.
But I mean, it's simply here's the thing that you're probably struggling with, is that our campaign finance laws, by and large, don't make logical or reasonable sense, and so they're hyper technical. They have all these absolute bars, for example, from a super PAC donating to a candidate or a campaign. Because super PACs are a creation of essentially court decisions. And, they've created this post-Citizens United and a couple other cases. They've created this regulatory scheme that just, really doesn't make logical sense. And I'm sure that's why you and your listeners are probably scratching their head thinking, this Whitaker guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but it doesn't make any logical sense.
That's exactly federal laws. Well, you've nailed it. That is exactly how I'm feeling. I'm thinking, well, you know what you're talking about. And I don't, and I'm wondering if I'm alone in this, and nobody's calling in, so I'm guessing they're listening like we all are, just to try to understand it. I guess I've always thought that a PAC, and maybe I don't know the difference between a super PAC and a PAC, but I always thought it was the whole purpose of them was to raise money for the candidate.
Well, you're thinking of a traditional PAC, a traditional political action committee that could raise money and could donate to candidates. For example, most trade groups, the international carpenters have a PAC, and they spend, they can give, I think, up to about $5,000 per election to candidates. And so that's, sort of in your mind, you're thinking a PAC, but this is what's called a super PAC, which is an independent expenditure and needs to stay independent from the candidate and their committee. So that's the difference. Calling it a PAC is not really what it is. It's an independent expenditure group.
So just to understand, so a super PAC would be getting money to buy ads to support the things they want to support, and it may not necessarily be directly connected to the candidate, even though the candidate might benefit from the ads. Does that sound right?
Well, that is very true. But what you're reading and seeing is that the top talent and the people with the deepest relationships with the candidates are actually going to run their super PACs instead of their campaigns. And so, I mean, it is a legal fiction that is, it's going to be actually the story of 2016. Jeb Bush has been doing a lot with super PACs.
Well, and I was going to ask about that too, just to kind of bring in the other party, because, and again, the people in the media, and we are among them, often do play politics. I mean, it's easy to see how a broadcast organization or a journalist, a magazine, newspaper, whatever, leans one way or the other simply by the way they write about the candidates. It's interesting to see that, and so a lot of the ones who are more liberal leaning will pick on the very thing it seems like you're picking on with Hillary, maybe not this exact same complaint, but the fact that the super PACs were raising a whole lot of money before he announced his candidacy, which is technically right now still.
Right. I guess I heard on the radio this morning that it maybe even today, but yeah, I mean the complaint we filed back in April was very similar, which is essentially saying that Hillary Clinton was a candidate for president at that time and needed to follow the the filings, the FEC1 and the FEC2, and the financial disclosures, and all the kind of things that we require from candidates for president. That analysis that we did in our complaint against Hillary Clinton could certainly equally apply to former Governor Bush. I mean, they're very similar behaviors. The unique thing that some of the other candidates, and why you see, like, for example, Senator Rubio, why he hasn't been taking advantage of this super PAC fundraising that it appears Governor Bush has been doing, is because he is a current, federal office holder, and so those bans of coordination apply to him already since he's holding office, and former Governor Bush wasn't holding office, and so and that's the head scratcher that I'm sure is very confusing to your listeners, because the regulatory scheme really doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, but we're going to have these rules we need to follow, and that's our biggest calling card at the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust is, if we have this regulatory scheme, then we have to follow it. Just like ordinary citizens have to follow the laws and know what the laws are, these candidates and campaigns have to follow them and know what they are. Well,
and in just the last 23 minutes or however long you've been on, I understand it a lot better. I wouldn't say that I could answer any questions on anybody's behalf, but I think I grasped it a lot better. So, because what we do here is to try to generate interest in the subject and then direct the listeners either to a website or a book or something else. Let's do that, because obviously the radio interview is only going to scratch the surface. But you've helped me. I mean, you've guided me through my or lack of information so that I kind of understand it somewhat. What is the website that we go to learn more?
Yeah, the website is factdc.org. So it's just factdc.org, since we're a Washington, D.C. based group, and then we're on Twitter and Facebook, FactDC. So it's pretty easy to find us.
Okay, factdc.org. Matthew, thank you for being on the air with us today. I admire what watchdog groups do, especially when they don't seem to have a political agenda or partisan agenda. It helps us all pay attention to something we might not have even noticed before. I mean, this wouldn't have come out. And obviously the newspapers, et cetera, that would support Hillary wouldn't even bring this up.
Right.
So, I mean, they wouldn't even, so...
All right. Well, I appreciate you having me on this morning. This has been a fun time.
This is a good topic and obviously an important one. FactDC.org. Matthew Whitaker, thank you so much for being on the air with us, and you come back anytime.
All right. We'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
All right. We'll be right back.
This is James Snyder, inviting you to join me each Sunday morning at 9:30 for Sunday Joy on 1370 AM, 96.3 FM.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm